Welcome back to the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. We're looking back on sectionals weekend. First stage of the postseason has begun, and we're going to preview a little bit later in the show the District 3, the AAA Wrestling Championships, which are coming up this weekend. I'm Dustin Hawkinsmith. Dave Heckard's here with me as usual. We'll get into sectionals and districts in a little while, but we're first joined by Dominic Frontino from Shippensburg, now a three-time sectional finalist, a first-time sectional champion at 152 pounds as a junior. Dom, welcome to the show. It's good to have you, and we appreciate you taking a little bit of time to talk about your season and talk about, what it took to get here, which we'll touch on in a moment. But good to have you.
Yes, thank you guys for having me.
I want to have you in a second start. I want you to tell your comeback story, and what it took to be here. What timeline you were given by doctors, how you defied timelines to get to this point. But the first thing I want to ask you actually is, so we're standing by the podium. I've been doing this for a lot of years. I've been interviewing people by a podium for a long time. You were the first one ever to bend down and give your little brother a kiss on the head after you won a sectional title. And, I think, we were laughing about it before we started recording, but you are an old soul. And I wonder how you got to this place where you are like a 40-year-old trapped in a 17-year-old's body. Where does that come from?
I have no idea. I love my brother dearly, and I'm trying to start him off on the right path. Bring him to wrestling. I'm not trying to push it too much on him, but hopefully he can be exactly where I want him to be, better than I am eventually. But my dad has both my parents influenced me to be super mature as I get older. It's a nice thing to have.
So walk me through the injury. You tore your ACL, MCL, right? In May.
And
you were told, and your meniscus, and you were told at that point in time how long it would be, and then how long did it actually take, and what did you do to get back on the mat so quickly?
All right, so I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus on Memorial Day, and it took a pretty long time to actually get an appointment to be able to get it checked out. And originally, they told me they thought nothing was wrong with my knee because I could still bend around, I could still jump on it, and they're like, you guys, you can just rehab it and think it could be okay. But then we ended up getting an MRI, and she was like, "Oh, never mind, you tore all three." Completely, and we eventually got to we found the doctor that I wanted to get it done with, and we've got an appointment, and he checked it out for me, and he told me it was going to take up to a year. It was going to be a year, but my doctor was also a wrestler. He wrestled for Penn State, Dr. Jim Martin. He was a 4-time All-American, 1-time champ, and he kind of understood that I wanted to get back to the wrestling season, obviously. And I immediately, as soon as he told me that, I was like, so what are the chances of me recovering, 6 months earlier than the timeline he gave me? And he said, it's possible, but you have to have, you're going to work really hard. You're going to be disciplined. Everything you put in your body is super important. You have to make sure that you're the physical therapist, where I'm going to have physical therapy, or give me the right exercises, not overtraining me, icing it every single night. Getting the swelling down and getting my flexibility back was the most important part, and it did end up coming back really quick. I did all the right things, and I was seeing him monthly because it was a 2.5-hour drive to go to where we went to go see him. So I was going to see him monthly, and he, it kept improving. He kept saying it looked better and better and better. And one thing I forgot to mention, before I even was able to get surgery, I had to be able to bend my leg fully back, because it was too swollen he couldn't cut it open because it was so swollen, that I had to be able to bend my leg fully back to my butt before I could even get surgery. So, and he said if I wasn't able to do that before surgery, I would have never got my flexibility back.
I mean, the injury, the physical part of that, I think is tremendous how you overcame that. And I think what most people don't understand is like the mental side of an injury, right? Like you get hurt, maybe you're in May, you're training for, in the off season for the upcoming season. And, you take an injury like that and it sets you back physically. Yeah. But like the mental part of that is tough too. And And you know, I mean, you're an athlete, you go through injuries, and I just remember like different times of my careers that and I suffered injuries, nothing to the extent of yours, but even missing practices, maybe missing a game in college, like it taxes on you mentally. You know what I mean? You start to doubt yourself a little bit. You know, maybe even feel sorry for yourself a little bit. So talk to me a little bit, you know, shed some light on that, man, because I think, you know, a big part of physically recovering is the mental part of that. And just kind of tell us what you did as far as, you know, your mentality through this whole thing.
Yeah, one thing I was very blessed I was always overly optimistic, and as soon as it happened, you know, the people around me that I was, you know, you got to be positive, you got to tell me you got to be positive. My parents are super positive people. My physical therapy, you know, telling me, oh, you're gonna be back in no time. Then he knew the first day I had surgery. The next day I went into physical therapy. I was working my leg out. I couldn't even pick it up. I couldn't even pick my own leg up. I was using all my strength. It wouldn't even get off the bed that I was laying on. They were like, "Oh, don't worry, that's how everyone is." Not how everyone is, and you know, but just being overly optimistic about everything. Even when things weren't going well or if things were going well, you have to always look at the positives, no matter what situation you're in. That's what really I feel like carried me to be able to recover so fast.
Now, how about physically? The silver lining is so you're a sophomore, 138 pounder. You're pretty lean for that. The silver lining in this situation is without all your mobility in the lower half of your body, you got jacked up top. You're now a full 152. What did you do, and how would you measure your strength? Like, can you measure and say, hey, before the injury or last year, I was benching this and now I bench that? Walk me through how you build up that strength, because that could be a real difference maker for you too.
Well, one thing I definitely started lifting a lot because that's all instead of going to wrestling practice, I didn't lift as much as my freshman and sophomore year. But since I wasn't able to go to wrestling practice every day like I usually did, I had to find something to do to occupy, you know, my time. So I was going to the weight room. I was lifting every single day. I had weights in my basement. I have a personal trainer that I lift with, and he knew it. I was just upper body, everything from my hips up. And there's also exercises I was doing on just my one leg, because when you build your one leg muscle up, it actually helps your other leg when it was healthy to be able to build muscle faster, because it sees the other one and it kind of reacts to it. But I definitely lifted a ton since I wasn't able to wrestle, and that definitely helped me fill out this year, and I got a little bit bigger.
Now, do you think like, you know, when you started back this season and started wrestling, did you find yourself like a little hesitant with some things on it? You know what I mean? Till you kind of felt it out and kind of realized what you can and can't do with it. Talk to me about that a little bit.
All right. So first of all, I was given this huge brace. He was like, you know, you're probably gonna have to start wrestling with this. So I remember I was practicing with it on, and I was like, holy cow, this thing feels like it's like my right leg is 2 legs and my left leg is 1. So I'm carrying a whole nother leg on. And then I remember I wrestled my first 3 matches with it at Big Reveal Duels, and that thing was just heavy. Like everything else in my body, I was conditioned very well. I was always conditioned well. There was just my right leg was like, ugh. So it kind of felt like my feet weren't moving as well when I had that thing on. So I eventually, my knee feels great. You know, it's 100%. And I did I did stop wearing the brace. I just have a knee pad, and it works really well, and it helps me move my feet a little bit more. No fatigue. But another thing that I had to get over there, my knee is numb. I have no feeling in that part of my knee where he cut it open. So every time I'm on the mat, it's like it feels like it catches it when I have just my bare knee on the mat. It feels like it catches on the mat. Like, you know what I mean? If I shoot, it feels like there's no give.
Yeah.
So
that knee pad just offers like a little extra stability for you. You know, yeah, absolutely.
Just to keep it tight, and it's not going any weird positions.
Yeah.
You talked about conditioning too, and how did you go about maintaining, or when it came time that you were able to get a little bit more permission to do more things? How did you stay conditioned or get conditioned? Because, you know, looking at you on Saturday, you look to be in very, very good shape, which, you know, not a lot of people can say that when they have, you know, a knee injury the way that you had.
One thing, my physical therapist kept me in peak condition. Even when I couldn't do anything with my legs, I swear they did so many amazing things in my physical therapy. I give them so much credit. They were so amazing, and they helped. There was bikes that were just for my arms. You know what I mean? You just go circles with your arms. I was doing that, and I was doing stuff with my with dumbbells where I was doing and putting them in circles, and then I had to do, and eventually when I was just like kind of like lifting, eventually when doctor cleared me to start doing squats and all that stuff again, it was just immediately I was getting on the bike, getting my legs moving, running sprints, on the track, running whatever, doing everything that I possibly could to get conditioned, because that's, I think, one of the most important things in wrestling is that if you're conditioned, you can go with anyone.
Yeah, moving from the injury, I do want to talk some about your wrestling, man, and I, congratulations on a good weekend. Beating Gabe in the finals, and I think both of you two are going to be guys that are wrestling at the state tournament here at the end of the year, and it was a great, my favorite final. That's the one I felt like even fans, people this weekend were sticking around to watch that final. You had two, high achieving guys there, and you and Gabe and all that, and I think for you, your best attribute, and Dustin kind of hit on this earlier, is your sense of maturity and your sense of focus. And I feel like, before the match, we were all hanging out, talking to some buddies, and what do you think about the Frontino and Belga match? And I said, well, I know Dom is such a focused kid, and he seems to always win the close ones. You know what I mean? And to win close matches, it takes a lot of poise, a lot of maturity, and Dustin kind of hit on that a little earlier. So, again, I'm going to ask you again, where does that come from, man? Because I mean, you're a smart wrestler. You're a tough wrestler. You're focused. I mean, you never panic, and those intangibles, the mental side of wrestling, are all very, very important to be successful. I mean, heck, you won a district title as a freshman. And in order to do that, there's a sense of maturity about you, and just kind of shed some light on that, and I think other wrestlers need to hear, and even young people, and that winning and losing are just byproducts of what you do off the mat, man. And you seem like such a good kid, a good student, and just talk to us a little bit about how important that side of it is to you.
Yeah, that's very important. But one thing I was saying, I was never, when I was younger, my parents, I before you came on, we talked about how I'm the first one in the family to ever wrestle. So my parents are kind of learning as I go with it. So my parents never pushed me to the max where I got tired of wrestling. It was always my choice. Whenever I wanted to go to practice, I wanted to practice. I love wrestling for me, not because for anyone else. You know what I mean? And that, I feel like that really helped me evolve in the sport and go to different levels. And I've also had so many different coaches over the span of 12 years that I've been wrestling. I've been to, Young Guns, M2, I wrestled with Bentley, Brian Morrow, all just great coaches, the best in the country. And I feel you take little bits and pieces from every single one of those coaches, and you put it into your wrestling IQ, and you just keep getting smarter, and you focus, and you want to just keep getting better, and you just love it. You just absorb the sport, and and as soon as you see improvements in your matches, and you just love it. Just like lifting, that's kind of one thing how I got into lifting a lot, is when you start lifting for 2 weeks, you see a little bit of improvement. You lift for a month, you see start muscles to start gaining. It's like, holy cow, this is,
it's like an addiction. You become addicted.
That's exactly how when you get better at wrestling, you beat a kid that you never beat before. You're in practice, you're wrestling with top guys in the country. You take them down a couple times, and you never used to take them down. It's those improvements. You're like, holy cow, I just want to keep going back at it. I want to keep getting better and better and better. And that's really how I evolved in it. And I'm very thankful for my parents to be able to drive me all over the place.
Yeah, it's huge, especially when you're talking about going to M2 and places like that. That's not a small commitment. And whether you're
Yeah.
driving yourself or not, that's a big time commitment for everybody. Um,
Yes.
to go with your wrestling style, and we talked about this a little bit too. I think being poised and being calm and being patient, those are all things. But how do you kind of weigh being the right amount of patient and also being able to attack and to wrestle with urgency too? The patient is a strong suit of yours, and it really, your ability to kind of hang in there made some part of the difference when you beat Gabe. You took him down with 12 seconds left. Your patience and your ability to kind of see the big picture helped. But at the same time, is there a part of you that says, okay, I got to go a little bit more. I got to, maybe instead of waiting for the window, to create the window?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like all of my matches to end up how Gabe and I did. I like to score more points. Not make my dad, my parents, and all my coaches have heart attacks. But I do. You also don't, like we were talking before, you don't want to force anything. You don't want to make stupid decisions. You want to be overly offensive to where it's hurting you. It's going to be a negative effect on you. But there's points in the time where you got to be pushing the pace all the time. And it might not. Some of the things that you do in the first period might not be tiring them out in the first period, but by the third period, it's wearing them out. You know what I mean? Just little tacks on them, little to keep ticking away, and eventually the points are going to start pouring on. That's really what I focus on.
Now, I mean, speaking of scoring points, man, I mean, looking at your district bracket here coming up, that 152-pound weight class is loaded, man. So you're gonna have to score some points this weekend to win and get through that bracket. Talk to me about how you feel, about your bracket here this weekend at districts. I mean, you got, looking, probably your second match is going to be against the Gonzalez kid, a returning district champ. You have the Edwards kid from Hempfield, the Newell kid from Gettysburg on your side. Talk to me a little bit about your plan here, as far as moving through your bracket. And I argue, and Dustin, you could agree with me here. I think 52 is arguably the toughest weight in our district right now. And so talk to me a little bit about your weight class and how you feel.
First, I looking at my bracket. I just want to dominate. I didn't care where I was put in the bracket. You know what I mean? Whoever steps out in front of me on the line, I'm looking to dominate and keep scoring points, go after them, no matter who it is. They could be 4-time undefeated, champ or whatever they are. It doesn't matter. You got to give 100 no matter who it is. You go out, score points against everyone, get on my offense. They shoot, I score, and I shoot, I score. That's my mentality going to every single match. And I feel great at 152. My weight's great. I'm excited to get into it. I love the challenge. I love the challenge. You guys are saying it's a highly bracket. It'll be great staying on top of the podium at the end of the week.
And most competitors do. Like, if you're a true competitor, man, and you're a wrestler, you're a competitor. I mean, good wrestlers like wrestling good wrestlers. You like to challenge yourself. You like competing against the best. I think you're gonna have a good weekend. And again, like, the best advice like I could give you and is just, the only match that matters is the one you're about to wrestle. You know what I mean? And don't that's it, man. No doubt. So no, I'm excited to come watch you this weekend and see how that weight class unfolds. And there's no doubt that you're going to be a guy that I think people are going to have to go through to get the gold medal. So yeah, man, good luck this weekend.
Thank you so much.
Hey, one last question for you, Dom, and I'll let you get running. I just wanted to kind of speak to the concept of challenge. And I think last season, you can probably look back on it and just say, you didn't quite get what you wanted out of it, I'm sure. And then you have the injury. How has a year of challenges and injury and kind of like that valley helped kind of prepare you and make you a better person and wrestler right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Last year I did come up short. It was a crazy year because of COVID and all that stuff. They had the super regionals and a bunch of stuff changed. But I've always worked hard every single year that I've wrestled. But this year I felt like I've worked my freaking butt off. You know what I mean? As hard as I could possibly work to get back and be able to wrestle this season was just unbelievable to me. And I'm thankful for every single moment I have. I'm able to wrestle. That's why I just want to absorb all. I love wrestling. That's what I want to do every single day. I want to get in the room, just keep getting better and better. And I love working hard and just going at it every single day to be able to, beat the best guys in the country and the state, and hopefully come on top in March when it matters.
There you go. That's Dominic Frontino Jr. from Shippensburg, sectional champion, looking to become a 2-time district champion. That's happening this weekend, Friday and Saturday at Spring Grove. Dom, thanks for jumping on with us, buddy.
Yep. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a nice
Yeah,
week.
good luck this weekend, man. Go get them.
Well, what a kid, Dave. I mean, you and I had talked about, Dom Frontino before, but has it together, self-starter, disciplined, ambitious, smart, and all that stuff it shows up in his wrestling. And, I'm looking forward to, and I think we're going to see it happen. I mean, both of these guys, Dom and Gabe, and we'll talk about district brackets here in a minute, but Dom and Gabe have some work to do to get back to the finals, but I'm hopeful we see that one again.
Yeah, no, you always want the good guys like the Dom Frontinos of the world to do well too. Like you're always cheering for those guys. They do everything right. And I know he's an outstanding student as well. And just a smart kid. And like, I love the call, like the old soul. And like, I feel like that's what he is. And I mean, he's a good kid to have on, a good guest. And, but I do agree that 152-pound weight class is just a bear. And, I'd love to see the final of those two again, but they're going to have some work to do for sure.
Yeah. And we'll touch on it actually as we make our rounds here, touching briefly on sectionals, then we'll go briefly through District 3, just the AAA brackets. I'll do AA with Hunter Wallace a little bit later in the week here on the PennLive Wrestling Podcast, but we'll focus on AAA here. And one of these that, looking at Section 1 from last weekend at Governor Mifflin, one thing that's going to influence that 152-pound bracket, JT Hogan from Daniel Boone, who's kind of a forgotten guy in that bracket. He went into overtime and beat Griffin Gonzalez of Lebanon, who was a district champ last year. And now Griffin Gonzalez ends up running into, in all likelihood, Dom Frontino in the quarterfinals. One way or the other, with the way the brackets are set up, he was going to get a tough kid. But coming out of that section, so Griffin Gonzalez will now be on Frontino's side in the quarterfinal round. One of probably, like 7, 8, 9 really good either first round or quarterfinal matchups that you'll see in this tournament.
Yeah, and then on the reciprocal end, like the Frontino beating Belga, I mean, that's who Hogan's going to get second match. So that's going to be, that weight class right there is going to be good. And, coming out of that section, the Hogan kid is like you said, and was a kid that kind of came on as a freshman and you kind of like opened some eyes a little bit. And I last year, I don't think things worked out for him too well. Is probably where he wanted to be in the postseason. But here's a guy now that 152 pounds that, again, he's 25-1. He just knocked off a returning district champ. And again, just adding to the depth of that 152-pound weight class that we knew was going to be, a tough bracket from beginning of the year. So, and again, coming from that section, I mean, that section really, I don't want to say screwed things up, but man, did it really shake things up a bit. And it's going to give us a good quarterfinal round.
Well, and that's where, with the pre-slotted brackets, when you have one section that's inordinately strong, or one section where the third place guy was somehow the best wrestler out of that section,
right,
it can cause some chaos. And you're seeing that coming from that section here in districts. Another thing I think it's worth noting coming out of that section, Mike Traynor from Octarera, a kid who feels like it feels like he's been around for about 8 years wrestling. At 145 pounds, that kid is a powerhouse kid. He beat the Fisher kid from Conestoga Valley, who had beaten Reagan Lefevre twice out of 3 matchups with him. So you see, you kind of see some depth there. You see Mike Traynor, don't forget about this kid. I mean, I think he's positioned to be a handful in the district tournament.
Especially at a 45, I feel like, I know Lefevre is a returning district champ there, but like you said, Fisher beat him twice this year. And I mean, that weight class, I'm going to say it's kind of wide open a little bit. Like there, to pick somebody to win 145 right now, I can't really do that. I don't know who's going to come out on top. So he's definitely a guy though that adds into that 145-pound weight class, and really a school that we're kind of unfamiliar with. Octarera has been on the double A side for a long time now, and now they're in AAA, so that'll be some interesting flavor to add to the district bracket.
Two guys coming out from there who I think are positioned as pretty firm favorites in their weight classes for districts as well. Tucker Hogan, who's a sophomore, JT Hogan's brother. He looked outstanding over the summer. I watched him run through a major Jagger Gray at an off-season tournament. Long kid. You saw the makings I think it was 160, or did he wrestle? I think he wrestled 172 last year. He wrestled.
Yeah, I think he
Nectar.
did. I think you're right.
Yeah.
He was there last year too.
So he's back, and I think a contender at 172. And then Johnny Miller from Exeter, sort of not somebody that we talk about a great deal. We don't talk a lot about Exeter anyway, but Johnny Miller is a really good candidate to win a state medal. So both of those guys, as these sections are coming together, certainly worth watching at districts this weekend.
Last year, when I saw Tucker Hogan wrestle as a freshman at 172 pounds, holy cow. I think, I just, this frame, and all I kept thinking is, there's some college coach out there right now saying, this is going to be my 97 pounder in 4 or 5 years. He has the height, he's physical. And he is tough, man. I was really impressed with him last year, at the district tournament. And, he got to the finals where, he gave Nectar all he wanted last year, so, I think that could set up to be a good final, as you mentioned earlier, with Bartram and him, and that'd be at least a good one to see. And not that somebody else can't come off the other side of the bracket, but just looking at a quick glance, that would be a nice final to see with those two. So.
Looking at section 2, Central Dauphin was a runner up out there. I think they got like 11 guys through, I think was the number. 11 out of 13, they got through to districts, which, Swags was pretty vocal last year. And a lot of coaches were vocal about this last year, of just having 2 guys get through. Swags had a lot of third placers last year who didn't get through the district round. Now he's got those guys, Matt Repost, Ryan Garfka, as you would expect, kind of leading the way. They win their section. The big story from section 2 was Nico Tassi from Warwick. Going into overtime, late takedown in regulation, and then a really impressive scramble drill situation to get the winning takedown in overtime to win that 113-pound bracket. And I would expect, there's a really good chance that you see these 2 guys again this weekend.
No, there is. And I know the first time they wrestled, Williams jumped out to a nice lead and Tachi came back. And it was like one of those deals where Tachi didn't win the battle there, but he won a little bit of like that confidence deal, where, hey, like I can beat this guy, and then that's the result. And again, the Williams kid, obviously returning state champ. He's a tough customer, and just an impressive job by Nico Tachi. Even the sense of where he started to where he's at now, the hard work that kid's put in is really commendable. And I think I agree. I wouldn't bet my house on it, but let's be honest, I wouldn't be surprised to see those 2 again in the finals. And again, bridging from Caden Williams, you see Camden back at 120, which adds some flavor to again, 120 pound weight class, is a real tough weight class, and him being back just adds to that.
And statewide too, 120 is on the list of statewide, maybe being the toughest bracket. It's up there if it's right. Not the toughest. So Camden Williams coming back. He was 11-3 coming into the weekend. We hadn't seen him for a long time. I honestly didn't know what his status was going to be, but he's back. And the question's going to be, and we'll touch on this later, is he the same Camden Williams as we saw all the way up through super regionals last year? Is he able to overcome, the lack of mat time this year? Is he that real state contender? I think he still has to prove that. And I think this weekend will go a long way for him. Section 3, how about Chambersburg going through the season that they had and the ups and downs and the injuries and all the things, Matt Menser said he felt like a manager, like he was just managing guys coming and going, being in the lineup, out of the lineup. That's the 3rd straight year they won Section 3, which, they weren't on the list of District 3 team contenders for all kinds of reasons. So now they go in there with Carlisle and Cumberland Valley and Cedar Cliff and, all these schools and Northern, and they're the sectional champs. And I wouldn't say I'm stunned by it, but it was a really good performance by those guys.
It was. And again, just the emphasis that Coach Menser puts on the postseason. Every postseason, his guys wrestle hard and they're ready to go. And, And this year was, I mean, I remember seeing him at the Cumberland Valley match, and I mean, he just looked like a defeated human being. You know what I mean? Like you said about the managing part, and but good for them. And again, that the whole idea, like we said, this whole year, just keeping it together and keeping that focus. And his guys did that this weekend. And you start, Saturday being there, you start looking at the brackets and you're like, wow, man, Chambersburg has a nice set of kids here right now, and I mean, good for them. And I didn't realize it was their third straight team title, but that is impressive, man. So again, kudos to that crew there.
We talked about Frontino and Belga quite a bit. I do think, we will see that one again in the finals this weekend. I'm doing, I'm writing a story about Anthony Briscino from Cumberland Valley, a sophomore, pinning his way to a 160-pound title. He beat Anthony D'Angelo in the semifinal round, which I thought was his biggest obstacle on his way there. But I did talk to him, and I did feel like, everybody knows that Briscino can wrestle. Everybody knows that he's tough. Everybody knows that he's so sound and solid and all that. I kind of felt like he needed something of a breakthrough like this one, to win a tournament of any kind, to get a big win or two of any kind, to really propel him into that next level. And I feel like that might be happening in front of our eyes right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's another specimen of a kid, and had a nice season for Cumberland Valley last year as a freshman, and really, like, he had again the two guys advancing. There was a mishap there in his bracket. He was up 10-0 at the end of the first period and got pinned, and it just completely messed his whole deal up there. And I think I'm not saying the kid would have went to states, but I mean, at the end of the day, he would have been a guy that would have been a tough out at districts and got that experience. And I remember last year being so disappointed, as his coach when he got pinned, more for the experience that he lost, to feeling like that happy for him now that, he had a good sectional tournament, is heading into districts with a sectional title. So, and he's tough, man. I mean, he strong kid, works hard, and it's good again to see him achieve that. So I agree with you though. You could be making of something there, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think just a little boost of confidence can go a long way at this point. Feeling like he can wrestle with all these guys, and you're right. I mean, deprived of that opportunity last year just by some fluky stuff.
Yeah.
One other result I wanted to get your opinion on was Travis Armstrong from CD East. We've talked about him a couple times along the way here. This is a big, physical, strong, tough, menacing kid. And Zach Evans is no slouch. And I don't know, he pinned Zach Evans last year at sectionals too, but this one in 35 seconds was one of the more stunning outcomes I felt like of the entire finals.
Yeah. I mean, at first glance, I just figured Zach would win. I thought, that's the guy I would pick. I thought, the competition Zach wrestled, like the workout partner with having height with him to work out. And, he had a good showing down at Escape the Rock. But I love it. Again, Travis Armstrong comes out and throws him on his back in 35 seconds. And like that is a sectional champ. And at the 215-pound weight class, another weight class where I feel like there's some solid kids in, but it's kind of wide open. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do this coming weekend here at Spring Grove.
He's a man on a mission, that's for sure. And his practice partner every day is Marquise Holton from Central Dauphin.
There you go.
He's on the staff as an assistant there, really, with the specific goal in mind of working with Travis Armstrong and getting him better and getting him tougher and getting a little bit more mission oriented. And I do feel like he's on a mission here to win this thing and to get a state medal. And we'll see. Section 4, Gettysburg being a runner up, somewhat of a surprise, but I think we've talked about them being such a good dual team, but not always the biggest factor in individual stuff. And you saw that with, in this tournament. And I felt like Central York has their trio of guys that'll be really, really interesting to watch too. Carter Davis, who spent a good chunk of time at 145, since he dropped to 138, he's been outstanding and somebody that you got to watch there. Macon Myers is a kid. I mean, he, just like we talked about with Briscino, he might just be in need of a little bit of a breakthrough to shove him along on his way, but he's got some ability too. Ethan Miller, late 285, long kind of athletic kid at 285. And, that matchup could be an interesting one again at a weight class that's otherwise pretty wide open.
So I tell you what, the Davis kid has really kind of jumped on the scene here, and is a guy that I feel like could possibly win 138 pounds here. And he got hurt last year. With the season we had, we actually wrestled Central York twice, and we wrestled against them, and he was in the lineup the first time, and he got hurt, and he was out of the lineup the second time. And I remember talking to the coaches down there, and they both said how he got hurt and he wasn't in. I just really liked the way he wrestled the first time against us, and thought a lot of the kid. And so to see him come out this year and do what he does, I mean, it's not overly shocking, but man, he's really came on the scene strong. And again, the Myers kid is a tough kid. And even the Miller kid, Jake Lucas wrestled him last year, and I think Jake pinned him, but the kid is a good looking kid. I mean, he's long, he's physical looking, he's strong, and I mean, he just matchup wise, body type wise, athleticism. I mean, I think he can get some guys in that 285-pound weight class and fits.
And that's what they seem to be looking for. This kid wrestled 215 at least as often as he wrestled 285 this year. So could have gone either way, but I think they like the advantage that he's able to create by being the most athletic kid in his weight class. And we'll see if that pays off for him. He lost, it was like a 7-2 decision to Trevor Gallagher from Gettysburg,
Right.
who I would say was the favorite that weekend.
Right.
Caden Dobbins, he's another one, in that 152. He was a district finalist last year, lost to Josh Miller at 138 pounds. Looks really good at 152. He pinned Logan Newell, who was state ranked, won probably upwards of 30 matches this year. Pinned Logan Newell in 27 seconds. So just another little reminder that Caden Dobbins isn't gone. I mean, the road to a district title, you're going to have to go through that kid to get there. So
no, I mean, he's tough. He's tough. And a guy that started his career little and knows how to wrestle, and now is getting bigger. Those guys do tend to do pretty well. So
let's bounce around these district brackets here real quick and just kind of hit the high notes for what you see. And starting at 106, I mean, the thing that jumps out right away is Liam Flanagan from Central Dauphin getting a shot with Dean Hauser from Daniel Boone, who's a Section 1 champ, in that quarterfinal round. In all likelihood, it's none of this is foregone conclusion when you're trying to project who's going to wrestle who. But that's a really strong matchup in that early round. And I think the bottom half of the bracket, you saw Jordan Williams run through a bunch of some of the, I think 3 out of the top 4 or 5 kids at 106 were in that Section 2, and Jordan Williams from Hempfield won it. So he's coming from the bottom half of the bracket. He's going to have to probably go through Louis Malave from Manheim Township. Maybe you've got him coming through, but in that top half of the bracket, you've got Hauser and Flanagan likely in the quarters, and you got Marco Tachi down there, maybe wrestling Phil Montez from Cumberland Valley in the quarters.
Yeah, and I mean, even the younger Leipart is down there in that upper bracket too, and he's not a bad kid. So, I mean, that top half of that bracket does seem, pretty heavy. But again, it kind of shakes out. You know what I mean? Because you come out in the quarters and you cross over, and but yeah, I mean, in the winners bracket, that top half is going to be fun to watch.
Pretty wide open, I think, overall. It's really hard to, if you had to try to pin me down to ask who was going to win it, I could make a case for Dean Hauser, Jordan Williams, Flanagan, or Marco Tachi. You can make a case for all of them. 113, I think you hate to kind of look too past it, but I think you have a pretty clear cut Caden Williams and Nico Tachi rematch in all likelihood is going to happen. Caden Williams is going to have probably a tough one with Jimmy Garcia from Wilson, the Section 1 champ, in the quarterfinal round. But otherwise, no disrespect to anybody else. Travis Clausen's a pretty tough customer coming from Section 2 out of Penn Manor. But Tachi and Caden Williams are pretty hefty favorites in my mind to get through the top and the bottom half.
That's Section 2. Weight class 1,313. I mean, Tachi, Williams, Clausen. I mean, all 3 of those guys are good kids. I mean, that weight class there, though, I would say that, if I was a betting man, I would probably put my money on seeing Tachi and Williams again in the finals. But again, this is why you wrestle, and things happen. And, but some other guys, you mentioned everybody else in there that I feel like could maybe make some noise. I don't know, the Clausen kid. The Garcia kid from Wilson. I agree with that. That'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, but I think it's going to be a tall order for any of those guys to knock off Tachi or Williams.
Looking at 120, you've got kind of a big three, as we alluded to before. Mason Leapart, number one in the state right now, 32-0. Rocco Fratelli from Northern, and you've got Camden Williams from Manheim Township, who in all, looked like a state title contender, maybe the favorite last year before he missed weight at states. And obviously you start right there, but then you look at the depth of this weight class. And I think that's what you mentioned this weight class before, but you're looking at Dallas Shore, Gabe Pakaitis, Mark Paradine, Gavin Richard, Damian Key from Dallastown, Luke Menser, Jake Mitchell, Weston Bear from Solanco. If you're asleep at the wheel for 1 minute in this weight class, Dave, there's a lot of guys who can get you.
No, you're right. I mean, I like the sectional final that we were in, section 3 final with Menser and Fratelli. I thought that was those two there are good guys. And even, the Mitchell kid from Cumberland Valley coming back and getting third after losing to Fratelli. I mean, those 3 guys there are tough customers. And, but you look at the depth of that weight class, and it is a pretty deep weight class. And, I think in the quarterfinals, you're going to see a pretty good quarterfinal in, Menser and Gavin Richard, you know what I mean, in the quarterfinals. And, I still think Mason Leipart's going to be a tough customer for anybody in that weight. He just so tough on top. But the kid from, the Adams kid from York Suburban wrestled him pretty tough. I think the final was like 4-0. He beat him. So, and there's another kid that I think, could make some noise there. So again, I think it'll be interesting to see how. No, I'm sorry, Tyler Adams from York Suburban. I said Richard. But, again, though, that weight class is loaded, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there and see how that shakes out. But I think I feel pretty safe that saying that Leipart would be a finalist in that weight class. So
yeah, and I think consistency and he doesn't take any moments off. He's got poise and composure and understands wrestling really well. My point was, so a couple things from this weight class is, one, Rocco Fratelli got beat by Camden Williams, wrestled him pretty tough for a while. I think he ended up getting pinned by him last year, but there's a big difference between where they are. I mean, this was Camden Williams peaking. He was hot. He had momentum. He had wrestled the whole year. Now you have Rocco Fratelli. Can he close that gap if they see each other in the semifinals? That's one thing. And then the other thing is, when you look at the big three, one of those three, Leipart, Williams, or Fratelli, is not going to make it to the finals. And you better maintain your focus in that consolation bracket. If you do get knocked off early, if you don't get what you want, you better not have that semi slide, because there's a lot of guys who will be tough when you get down there.
Oh yeah. And then that happens. And that as well as I do, man. You lose that semifinal match, and that's when guys are right for the picking, man. They come down, their head's not in it, and maybe you lost early and you come storming back through. You have some confidence, you have some momentum, and then you knock a guy like that off, and that guy goes home, and that's how that goes down sometimes. So I agree. That's going to be a tough bracket, and a real good one to watch.
Looking at 126, I think you can say Carl Schindledecker from Chambersburg, returning state finalist, 2-time state medalist, a pretty heavy favorite in that one. But, he's looking at, even that Eli Long from Central York in round 1, Seamus Mack probably from Hempfield in the quarterfinals, Zach Luckenball maybe, and Luckenball's got to beat Eli Gregoris from Big Spring in the first round. So that path to the finals is tricky. Then in the bottom half of the bracket, Josh Hillard from Manheim Township. You've got Trenton Walker from Carlisle. Clayton Kozer, I thought, wrestled really tough over the weekend at the sectional tournament. And Zach Emery from York Suburban. So this one's got some depth too. It's got your favorites, Schindledecker and Hillard probably being at the top of that list, but there are some other guys who are capable of surprising there.
No, I the one guy that and again, the Snyder kid from Spring Grove, I was impressed with at a younger age, and he was injured this year, I guess, and just came back now, and he's 4-1 in the bracket. And I mean, it's tough for guys like that to get some momentum at the end of the year, but he had some experience, and that's a guy where I was kind of wondering where he was at all year, and he just kind of showed up here in the bracket at the end of the year. Got healthy, I guess, and came back. But I like the Hillard kid. I think he's a tough kid from Manheim Township. I mean, that would be the guy that I would maybe kind of pencil in as coming through that bottom half, but Schindledecker again is the favorite there, in my opinion. So
And for good reason. He looked pretty good
Right.
at the sectional too. Looking at
Yeah, he did.
132, I think you have some really good solid veterans there. Garrett Gear and Jared Fulton, who wrestled Matt Repos pretty tough in the sectional finals out there. Ivan Vega from Spring Grove, Aiden Bachman, sectional champ from Section 3. Even Josiah Whitcomb, fourth place from Cumberland Valley. I think he's a guy that nobody really wants to wrestle all that much. He gets Matt Repos in round 1, but this in my eyes, definitely Matt Repos' weight to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that'd be the favorite there. I feel pretty strongly in that. But again, like for him, I mean, he his first round matchup with Whitcomb. I mean, that's not like a first round matchup you really want. You know what I mean? And I feel like those two kind of know each other from a long time ago. They're former friend, they're friends and whatnot. But I still think Matt's going to be a tough one to top in that weight class, and I expect him to actually score some bonus at different points through that weight class. So, I think he's going to be tough as far as the other spots and who comes through there. I don't know. The Gear kid from Garden spot I really like. He wrestled last year and qualified for the the super region last year in Altoona, and came back. He actually lost to Kyle Miller in the opening round, and came back and wrestled the whole way back to qualify. So he's a tough kid too. But again, for him, I think that would be a tall order to beat Repos still. So.
And Matt Repos, just in my opinion, looks a lot better, a lot stronger as a junior at 132 than he did a sophomore at 126. He looks like he's at the perfect weight this year. Why I wasn't certain about that as a 126 pounder last year.
Right,
looking at 138, we mentioned Carter Davis coming from that bottom half of the bracket. Pretty tough road. Dom Dorado from Wilson, probably in the semifinals. I think Thad Krebs and Mike Beers are two solid grinder type kids, juniors, both of them, who, they're going to make you work for it, but I still like Carter Davis to get the whole way through. Then Alicia from Manheim Township, really strong kid, the favorite in that weight class. Curious to see, Reese Palulek having a nice year for Redland. He's 25-4. He's got, state medal aspirations. Wyatt Dillon is a kid, a sophomore, who it looks like he's gotten better and better as the years gone on. So not a slam dunk, but I think Alicia probably wins this thing, gets to the finals. And then Carter Davis is a guy, or Gerardo. There's going to be a tough customer waiting for him there.
Yeah, I feel like that might be a pretty good semi, a possible semi with Davis and Gerardo. Both the 2 and 3 seeds. So if you were to put them out in the semis, that'd be a good one to watch. I really like Davis's trajectory right now. I just think that kid's wrestling tough. I think he's going to be he's going to be a tough out. I do. I think I don't know if there's anybody in that weight class that can knock off Alicia. It's him. I feel so.
Looking at 145, we touched on this a bit earlier, but there's a really good chance that we see Reagan Lefevre, district champ at 145 pounds last year. We see him wrestle Keaton Fisher from Conestoga Valley. Fisher has won 2 out of 3 matchups against them. So we're probably going to have a barn burner right away in the top half of that bracket. You've got Mike Traynor, who his presence looms pretty large in the bottom half there, but Noah Rice from York Suburban is another contender there. Dave Miller from Cumberland Valley. I don't know if there was a more surprising number 1 seed from sectional weekend than him. No disrespect, but that was one. The most surprising number 1 seed, in my opinion, from sectionals gets that tough matchup with Mike Traynor early.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that weight class at that section, it was a little down, and Miller had a season where he did catch a lot of pins, you know what I mean, at different points, and for a sophomore, he has a bright future. Obviously, a tough first round matchup, but I'll tell you what, don't count out the Townsend kid either. Like, Jackson Townsend from Gettysburg. I mean, he's a kid that was at districts last year. He has 30 some wins this year for Gettysburg. And, that first round, you better watch it. He's a kid last year. He came out in the first round and he beat the other kid from Manheim Township. And I can't think of the kid's name, the 70 pounder, maybe, the Manheim Township kid.
Oliveria.
Oliveria, that's it. He beat him last year in the opening round of districts. Everybody was expecting to see Oliveria and Belga and in the quarters in Townsend, and I'm knocking him off. So I can tell you this, that, and that's another thing that people need to realize. the 1 hour weigh in, like you weigh in and then you wrestle in an hour and, or close to, when the tournament starts. But, that first match, I mean, you're down to weight, you know what I mean? You're making weight. You got to get a good warm up in, and the Townsend kid will be ready to go. So Fisher should not look past him. So, but I mean, that weight class is wide open too. So
yeah. I think Chris Haynes would love to see him be a little bit more consistent, know what he's getting from him on a day in, day out basis. But if you catch the best of him, what you're alluding to, he's a tough kid.
Yes.
We talked a good bit about 152. I'm just going to refresh the names real quick, then we'll skim by that one. Frontino at the top, Griffin Gonzalez, district champ last year. They're likely to meet in the quarterfinal round. JT Hogan, Gabe Belga likely to meet up in the quarterfinal round too. Belga likely to see JT Hogan, likely to see Caden Dobbins, who he beat 1-0 earlier this season, and then maybe to get that rematch with Frontino there in the finals if all goes to plan. Looking at 160, Ryan Garvik probably a pretty solid favorite there, but Jake Cherry's tough. The Rathman kid from Cocalico's tough. Briscino, as we talked to, might be kind of riding a little bit of a wave right now, getting that a wave of confidence that he needs to kind of take that next step. Macon Myers from Central York, I remember
him and Cherry in the quarters would be good.
Absolutely. You're going to see some good matchups really in all these quarterfinal rounds at 160. Macon Myers coming along. David Woolley, veteran, done a lot of wrestling for Warwick. Him and Anthony D'Angelo, the sophomore from Carlisle, on round one is one of the better first round matchups in this tournament. And then you got Nick Nettleton, a pretty experienced senior at the bottom here. You've got, there's a lot of landmines if you're a favorite like a Ryan Garvik in this weight class.
Yeah, I agree. And it's tough to pick. I think, Garvik would be the favorite, but anything can happen. And it's going to be interesting to see how this one shakes out. You got some guys with experience and, like you said, Nettleton and Myers and Briscino and Cherry. And it's some parity there in that weight class.
172. This is one that I've really been watching and waiting at this 172-pound weight class to figure out who's going to do what. I think Tucker Hogan is a cut above the rest, and he'll have a chance to prove that here. Then you've got Oliveria, super athletic sophomore from Manheim Township, Section 2 champ in the bottom half of the bracket, and you've got Cole Bartram, Section 3 champ. Who, when he's at his best and he is physical and he's beating up your head, his hands are maybe the heaviest in this weight class. If he's at his best, I like him to beat Oliveria. You need to see him kind of come out with some aggression there. But I think that semifinal is one of my most anticipated semifinals, assuming they get that work done, which, Bartram's got to go through Cam Fickets from Hempfield. Tyler Withers won 37 matches for Gettysburg so far this year. Jamal Lewis is pretty tough from York Suburban in the bottom half of the bracket. So this is, no pushovers, but I really like that collection of top three: Hogan, Oliveria, and Bartram.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with the semifinal there. I love the Oliveria Bartram semifinal. That's going to be a good one. Both those guys can score some points.
Looking at 189, Johnny Miller really liked he was at the CV Kickoff Classic. He ran into Sonny Sasso from Nazareth, and one of very few guys who made it 6 minutes with Sonny Sasso, which I think you need to get some extra ribbon or something for that. So he's at the top of the bracket. Aiden Height, who's coming on for Chambersburg. He has some good, solid ranked wins. He had pinned Jim Ellis from Ephrata just a few weeks ago. He'll get Jim Ellis probably in the quarterfinal round. Dylan Bard, experienced kid from Hempfield. Diesel Kozer, I really like the junior. He made a huge leap this year coming out of Shippensburg. So you got some other names here, but I just don't, no disrespect to anybody else, but I think this is Johnny Miller the whole way through.
I agree. He's the guy to beat in this weight class. And I just don't see anybody at that level, with Johnny. And I feel like he's a big, strong, physical kid. And the number 2 seed essentially is a sophomore in Aiden Height, who's got a great career so far and has a bright future, but that's going to be a tall order for him if they would meet in the finals.
Looking at that 215-pound weight class, the kind of bottom line at, we talked about it a little bit before, but the difference between the number 1 guy and the number, let's say 6 or 7 guy in the district at 215 isn't it's a pretty thin margin from one all the way through that rate. So Travis Armstrong sitting at the top, deserving of that. He's looked outstanding this year. Jose Garcia at the bottom, section 2 champ, unbeaten from JP McCaskey. Zach Evans, who was a Fargo All-American, who he missed some time earlier in the season, looked to be coming back strong. Kind of got, I would imagine he wants to see Travis Armstrong again after getting pinned by him at sectionals. Samuel Rodriguez, 32-2 from Gettysburg. When he's at his best, he's a really tough kid. Ryan McMillan, 30-4, sophomore from Wilson, one of the top young guys at this weight class. Robert Utz from Southwestern. There's not a lot of, there's not going to be a round off for anybody.
The thing I like about the McMillan kid is, guess who his workout partner was last year from Wilson as a freshman? You know what I mean? Like, he was working out with the state runner-up every day. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you do see that a lot in wrestling. Like, you have seniors that are real tough, and then they graduate, and then the guys that were around their weight the next year sometimes do really well, and you see that a lot. So, he's going to be a tough out too, and he's right in the thick of things.
Looking at 285, you've got, I think, a pretty good 1-2 punch. Pretty clearly established as favorites. Leighton Schmick in the top half of the bracket, Trevor Gallagher on the bottom. One thing interesting to watch here, I think, is you've seen Leighton Schmick kind of come out of nowhere. He wasn't a name that anybody was circling, and he's done some pretty good damage at the district level. So now he's got to get to a point where, okay, you're the favorite. You're the guy people are coming after. You're you've got that bullseye. He's transitioning to be that guy. I think he's going to handle it well, but just like 215, looking at Tyrese Washington, Hunter Bisking, Ethan Miller, and Ben Stewart, like both of those are first round matchups that could go either direction. Caleb Wessman from Hempfield, Micah Hershey's pretty tough from Spring Grove. There's a bunch of guys here who can trip you up if you're not laser focused.
I like the Hershey kid from Spring Grove. He's an impressive looking kid for a sophomore. Maybe a little young yet and a little experienced to do something here yet. But that's a name to remember for the future, I think. And again, a sophomore heavyweight, has 20 some wins as a sophomore. I think he's going to be a guy in the future. But for now, this is Schmick's weight class, I feel like, and he's going to be tough out. So.
District 3 championships coming up Friday afternoon, 3 p.m. start at Spring Grove Area High School. Get through the quarterfinals, couple rounds of consolations on Friday, then back at it on Saturday, semifinals, consolations, then into the placement matches. I'm assuming mid to late afternoon for that. And I think, for me, Dave, just refreshing to see a little bit of normalcy here, to see these brackets nice and full. And I think for everybody who's competing here, it's probably refreshing to know that you're back to having that weekend off and not going to Altoona to compete against the Whippy-O.
Yeah, that's an added bonus, right?
Brutal. Oh my gosh, brutal.
I feel like, from day 2 of districts and on is where you really draw that line, you know what I mean? And, to some of the best guys in the state. You come to day 2 of districts, most everything has kind of been washed out, and the guys that are there are they're wrestling in one of the toughest state in the country in high school wrestling. And, like I said, that day 2 of districts and on, you're going to see some good wrestling. So, and again, like, we go through here, we talk about the different kids and the matchups we think we're going to see. And here's the deal, like, nothing's guaranteed. You don't know what can happen. And, anything can happen. That's what's great about this sport is, guys can get pinned and you might not have been able to beat somebody, but you can pin them, and injuries happen and DQs happen and things happen. And, that's why you wrestle it. And like I said, no disrespect to the other guys in the bracket, but just from a fan standpoint of what we're kind of looking at and what we think could shake out. So good luck to all the wrestlers this weekend. This is a great tournament, and one of my favorites. You kind of know everybody, you know the teams, you know the coaches, so it's always a good tournament. And always at Spring Grove has run a great venue there. The past couple of years with districts, and I expect nothing less. So
Going to be a fun weekend. Back to normal here with District 3 Wrestling Friday and Saturday. That's Dave Heckert. I'm Dustin Hawkinsmith. We will be back next week to recap districts, maybe look ahead to Southeast Regionals and AA with the AAA guys being off. So excited to see what happens this weekend. Excited to be back next week on the PennLive Wrestling Podcast to recap all of it. And we'll see you next time.